Right now, somewhere in your body, a gene is switching on that has no business being active. It's called CREBST1. It's part of your inflammatory response. It exists to prepare your body for physical attack, wounds, infection, bacteria entering the bloodstream. You are not under attack. You're just alone. For decades, loneliness was treated as an emotional problem, something to fix with a phone call or a night out. Psychologists studied it. Self-help books solved it. Nobody thought to look inside the body. Then they did, and what they found changed everything. Because loneliness isn't just a feeling, it's a biological state, and your body responds to it the same way it responds to being stabbed. Let's start with the study that nobody saw coming. In 2007, John Cacioppo, a neuroscientist at the University of Chicago, published research that had taken him 15 years to build. He had spent those years doing something almost nobody in his field was doing. He was measuring loneliness in the blood. Cacioppo took two groups of people. One group reported feeling deeply connected to others. The other reported feeling profoundly alone. Same age ranges, same general health, same socioeconomic backgrounds. The only real difference was how socially isolated they felt. Then he looked at their gene expression. The lonely group showed significant upregulation of genes involved in inflammation and significant downregulation of genes involved in antiviral response. In plain terms, their bodies were preparing for violence and abandoning defense against disease simultaneously. He called it the conserved transcriptional response to adversity, a pattern the body activates when it perceives threat. Loneliness to your immune system looks exactly like danger. But here's where it gets stranger. Because Cacioppo wasn't just measuring a snapshot, he was tracking people over time. And what he found was that this biological shift didn't happen after years of isolation. It happened fast. Within weeks of perceived loneliness, the body had already begun rewriting its own defenses. Your body doesn't wait for confirmation. It acts on the feeling alone. Now you have to understand why this exists, because it doesn't make sense on the surface. Why would feeling lonely trigger an inflammatory response? What does social isolation have to do with your immune system? The answer takes you back roughly 50,000 years. For most of human evolutionary history, being separated from your group was a death sentence, not a metaphor, a literal, imminent death sentence. Alone in the dark, you were food. Alone in winter, you starved. Alone during injury, you died from things that were survivable with help. Your body learned this. Over tens of thousands of generations, it built a threat detection system for social disconnection the same way it built one for predators, because they carried the same survival stakes. When you feel lonely, your nervous system reads it as you are exposed, prepare for attack. Inflammation is how your body prepares for wounds it thinks are coming. Antiviral suppression happens because in the ancestral environment, if you were alone, viruses weren't your immediate problem. Predators were. The system was exquisitely designed for a world that no longer exists, and it is running constantly in millions of people right now. Because here is what Cacioppo documented next. Chronic loneliness doesn't just alter gene expression, it restructures the brain. Lonely people show heightened activity in the brain's threat detection systems, specifically the amygdala, the region responsible for registering danger. In a 2009 study, Cacioppo found that lonely individuals showed elevated vigilance toward negative social cues. Their brains were scanning the environment for threats the way a prey animal scans an open field. But more than that, their brains had begun to interpret ambiguous social signals as hostile. A neutral face read as unfriendly. A delayed reply read as rejection. A crowded room felt more dangerous, not less. Loneliness was rewriting the very system used to perceive other people, making connection harder to find even when it was right there. This is the trap nobody tells you about. Loneliness doesn't just result from social disconnection. It actively produces it. The longer it persists, the more the brain reshapes itself in ways that make genuine connection feel threatening. The isolation becomes self-reinforcing at the neurological level. And the body keeps paying the price. Cacioppo's longitudinal data showed that chronically lonely people had measurably higher cortisol levels throughout the day, elevated blood pressure, disrupted sleep architecture. Their hearts worked harder. Their cells aged faster. Telomere length, the biological marker of cellular aging, was significantly shorter in people with high loneliness scores. Lonely people weren't just suffering emotionally, they were dying earlier. Statistically, measurably, biologically earlier. A 2015 meta-analysis by Julianne Holtlandstadt at Brigham Young University pulled together data from 148 studies covering more than 300,000 people. Her conclusion was simple and brutal. Social isolation increases the risk of early death by 26%. Loneliness increases it by 29%. Living alone increases it by 32%. That put loneliness in the same mortality bracket as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Nobody puts a health warning on being alone. But here is the part of Cacioppo's work that almost never gets quoted, because the story the world took from his research was loneliness kills, full stop, a warning, a statistic, a reason to feel worse about already feeling bad. That was not his conclusion. Cacioppo spent the last decade of his life, he died in 2018, not documenting the damage, but trying to explain the signal. He argued that loneliness was not a pathology, it was a message. The same way physical pain tells you something is wrong with your body, loneliness tells you something is wrong with your social environment. It hurts because it is supposed to hurt. It's your biology demanding that you reconnect. The inflammatory response, the hypervigilance, the disrupted sleep architecture, these are not malfunctions. They are a system working exactly as designed, urgently pointing at something that needs to change. The tragedy isn't that the system exists. The tragedy is that modern life has filled millions of people with the signal and removed the means to answer it. Designed environments where you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely invisible. Built cities, workflows, and social structures that maximize proximity and minimize genuine connection. And the body keeps sending the signal, louder and louder. In the blood, in the brain, in the shortening of the very strands of DNA inside your cells. There's a gene switching on in lonely people right now that was built to protect them from wounds. There are no wounds coming, just the silence, and a body that has been waiting 50,000 years for someone to come back.